All right, folks, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. A little bit of a different view here because I have to use my book for this show, and I hope that the audio is okay. But I have to use my book for this show, and I haven't migrated the book over to the Macintosh yet. So we'll get, we're coming off the PC this time, so we will have, we'll have a little bit different view for this one, but we're talking about Daniel's 70th week and the September 23 Revelation 12 deception. And this is very, very important stuff. And this is very needy stuff. This is stuff that we have to learn and we have to know and we do have to understand. So let me go ahead and bring up our text that we're going to be working from today. And I think you're going to appreciate this. And what we're trying to do is show that the September 23 Revelation 12 crowd is steering you astray. And they're stealing from you as far as what you're really supposed to get out of this whole really important time in our lives. So let's look at Antichrist in Daniel's 70th week. This is coming out of the September 23, 2017 Revelation 12 signed book that I've written. It's out there. You can get it in the box below. It's a whopping 99 cents now. So let's take a look at this. We've already clearly established both on this program and in this book that the historical position of the church and the unanimous position of the Protestant Reformation was that the Pope and the Roman Church is the ultimate embodiment of the Antichrist. And this is the main reason that the September 23 Revelation 12 sign is even a thing, because the Jesuits had to go to work and they had to free the Roman Catholic Church from its place of being identified as the seat of Antichrist. And I'm not sure why I can't see what's going on here on my other channel, but interesting stuff. But at any rate, and so the Jesuits went to work and they created something that now the eschatologists continue. And why do the eschatologists look to the future for the Antichrist? They do it because of textual gerrymandering and outright being led by their nose by our old Jesuit friends. So let's take a quick look at Daniel's 70th week, and let's see exactly what Daniel's 70th week is, what it has to say. And I'm going to get over and see if I can't see what you're seeing, so we can't maybe eventually look at the chat and see what's going on. Okay, here we are. I think we're going to be okay. So there you go. I think I'm with you. Not certain, but I think I'm with you. It looks like you can see everything pretty well. Okay, so 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. I'm coming to you out of Daniel chapter 9. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, bring in everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision and prophecy, anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. That's 69 weeks. Street built again, wall, troublous times. After 62 weeks shall the Messiah be cut off, not for himself. People of the Prince that shall come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end thereof will be of a flood. And to the end of the war, desolations are determined. And he will have during this time made a covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of that week, he causes sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he'll make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the people. So after their rapture, a whole list of eschatological end-time events is found, quote unquote, in these verses by those that believe the Revelation 12, September 23 sign. They believe that in the future, the Antichrist will persecute and blaspheme the saints of God. They believe that in the future, there will be a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem. They believe in the future, the Christian religion will be abolished. They believe in the future, Jesus Christ will be denied. They believe Rome will be destroyed. They believe Antichrist will be received by the Jews. They believe the Antichrist will pretend to be God. They believe Antichrist will kill the two witnesses of God. They believe the Antichrist will conquer the world. So Jewish-inspired eschatologists like L.A. Marzulli, like Scott Clarke, teach that 69 weeks of Daniel's prophecy have already been fulfilled, while the 70th remains future. And these men have every right to believe that and to teach that. But the only authority they have on it is Jesuit doctrine, and it flies in the face of the historical teaching of the church and of the teaching of the Christ. It's total and arbitrary speculation, and it's based on nothing more than Jesuit writings and desires of these people to believe it. And I've said it before, L.A. Marzulli, Scott Clarke are gentlemen. They're sincere, but they are sincerely wrong, woefully wrong, and they're preaching and teaching Jesuit doctrine without any authority to do so, and they're putting aside teachings of the Christ, and they're putting aside teachings of, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to drink anymore, and they're putting aside teachings of the historical church in order to bring us the doctrine that they're bringing us. So let's go back into it right now. This is what the gospel truth says, because it doesn't matter what L.A. Marzulli says, it doesn't matter what Scott Clarke says, it doesn't matter what Jeffrey Darty says. What matters is what the gospel truth is. So let's break this down a little bit. After 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof will be of the flood. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. He'll confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week, he'll cause sacrifice, oblation to cease, overspreading of abominations, make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Now, we've seen that Father Ribera thought that this was all future in Daniel's writings. And the modern eschatologists believe him almost without exception. Think about that. Your modern eschatologists, and I've named just L.A. and just Scott, but all of your modern eschatologists believe what the Jesuit Francisco Ribera wrote. Think of that. All of your modern eschatologists believe Jesuit doctrine. It doesn't come anywhere else than from Jesuit doctrine. And they all believe it. That's why I say it's the greatest work of subterfuge and spy, what do you call it? What's spycraft called? Espionage in the history of history. That's just my personal belief. Everybody believes it. Everybody except those that believe the gospel truth. Let's get back into it. What was the historical teaching of the church and of the Christ prior to the Jesuit coup d'etat? Let's look at it in depth. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Street shall be built again and the wall even in troublous times. So 62 is 69, 62 plus 7, or this all adds up to 70 is my point. Historical understanding of the church prior to the Jesuit, it adds up to 69, the 7th we talk about down here. The understanding of the church prior to the Jesuit coup d'etat was that Daniel's 70th weeks were completely sequential. It would be, and it was historically 7 weeks and 62 weeks, or 69 weeks of 7 years each, a total of 483 years until Messiah be cut off. Historically, listen to this, it was 483 years. And the proclamation to rebuild the temple by Artaxerxes Longomanus in 445 BC, Messiah being cut off, which is generally viewed as the crucifixion. I don't think that's accurate. We'll talk about that later. For 1,500 years, this stunning prophetic accuracy was sufficient for the church. Think about that. Daniel says it'll be 49 weeks of years from the time to rebuild Jerusalem until the time where Messiah gets cut off. It was historically 69 weeks of years, 483 years from the time that Artaxerxes Longomanus in 445 BC said, yes, go ahead and build your temple again, until we got to the time where Messiah got cut off. Now that covers 69 weeks. There's 1 week left unfulfilled. Now, within Daniel, we saw that he said, hey, He will confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week, will cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. Now, these are somewhat cryptic verses, but give us an idea of what that covenant was. Now, I need you to understand this, that gospel truth says there'll be 483 years. Historical truth shows that there was 483 years. But Jesuit eschatologists want to say, no, it's future. It's not fulfilled, it's future. When we have the gospel truth and we have historical fact telling us, no, it was in the past. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but I'm giving you the gospel truth. All right, so what did Christ mean when he said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel in Matthew 15? What did he mean when he said, don't go to the Gentiles or any other town of the Samaritans, go rather to the lost house of the sheep of Israel? Matthew chapter 10. Whatever reason, the New Testament shows that Jesus planned a period of exclusive ministry to the lost sheep of the houses of Israel. The historic position of the church, also, by the way, echoed by the eschatologists, was that this covenant with many for 1 week is that Jesus intended a 7-year period of ministry, primarily focusing on lost sheep of the house of Israel. The historical church has always held that this was Daniel's 70th week and did so unchallenged for 1,500 years with a full backing and endorsement of the Protestant Reformation. 483 years, 7 years where the Christ said, look, I'm going to minister to Israel. But what happened in the midst of that 7 years? In the midst of the 7 years, it will cause sacrifice and oblation to cease. So in the middle of that covenant, which was Daniel's 70th week, Messiah caused the sacrifice and oblation to cease. This is generally recognized as the crucifixion sacrifice of Jesus, stopping the need for any more sacrifice. Again, that's not my position. But we have 483 years plus about 3.5 years. So we're into Daniel's 70th week. Messiah's cut off, crucified, right? So that leaves us about 3.5 years short of a completed 70 weeks. And you recognize this isn't future. All right. But we're still about 3.5 years short. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end thereof will be of a flood. And in the war of the desolations are determined. The historical position always was that these years were fulfilled when the Roman army under Titus destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. That's how long the Roman siege lasted. 3.5 years, from AD 66 into AD 70, mid-AD 66 to AD 70. Historical position has always held that this event constitutes the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet. The reasons are plain, they're obvious, they're compelling. And from that time, the daily sacrifice will be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. Daniel 12. Mark 13, but when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, let them that are in Judea flee to the mountains. Luke, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of where it shouldn't be, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then Matthew says, and when you see standing in the holy place the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Daniel foretold that after the sacrifice is cut off, he called the abomination of desolation would take place. Historical church has always seen this sequentially. And the Roman army surrounded Jerusalem being its ultimate fulfillment. Jesuits and the modern eschatologists strongly disagree. In each of the above verses, save the original statement, it's the Christ who's being quoted. And I intentionally listed the verses in chronological order so that we can know how they were understood. Mark was first. When you see the abomination of desolation standing where it ought not, get the hell out of Judea. First, Mark quotes the Christ telling his readers in 57 AD that those who were alive in 57 AD, would see the abomination of desolation. Nobody alive in 57 AD is going to be alive in 2017 or beyond. Tells them that when you see this specific thing standing where it shouldn't be, get the hell out of Dodge. The Roman army surrounding Jerusalem fits this narrative perfectly. And those that read and understood it had time to get out of the city alive when the Roman army came in AD 66. Then Luke says, about 6 years later, abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet is Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Luke didn't want to leave anything to imagination. His readers knew about Mark, and Luke didn't even feel the need to explain. He simply stated, hey, look, Mark was being coy. I'm telling you truthfully, plainly, abomination of desolation is the army surrounding Jerusalem, standing where it shouldn't be. Get the hell out of Dodge. Finally, Matthew, writing 3 years after Luke, links the army referenced by Luke back to the prophecy of Daniel. And now we know what the historical position of the church that stood unchallenged for 1,500 years was until Father Ribera and the Jesuits started writing. Now we know the position of the Christ, who was quoted 3 times saying, the destruction of Jerusalem was the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, and that this event, as of our day, closed and completed Daniel's 70th week and is past, not future. And yet the modern eschatologists unanimously side with Father Ribera and the Jesuits over the historical teaching of the church and Jesus himself and the Christ himself. Marzulli, come on my channel and answer me. Scott Clarke, come on my channel and answer me. You heard Scott answer me. He said, well, I think you're wrong. I said, well, Scott, I think you're wrong. And we agreed that you have to believe who you want to believe. With all due respect to L.A. Marzulli, with all due respect to Scott Clarke, they are going against the gospel truth. I've just shown you the gospel truth, and both Marzulli and Clarke disagree with it vehemently. I originally thought they did it with financial motivations. I say no, they don't have financial motivations that I know of. They're just deceived. The Christ said the abomination of desolation is the Roman army surrounding Jerusalem. Luke said it, Matthew said it, Mark said it. The abomination of desolation is the Roman army surrounding Jerusalem. When did that happen? AD 70. The middle of Daniel's 70th week was AD 70, not 2017, you chuckleheads. It can't be any more plain. It can't be any more clear. The Revelation 12, September 23 sign people are pitching you Jesuit doctrine that does violence to the gospel truth. Do you want to believe Jesuit doctrine or do you want to believe the gospel truth? It's up to you. I bring you to water. I can't make you drink. I bring you to the gospel truth. I can't make you think. It's up to you, my friends. What else did the Christ say on the matter? The Pharisees came to him demanding when the kingdom of God should come. Give us a sign, they said. And the Christ said, there's not going to be any sign. You won't be able to look over here and see something. You won't be able to look over there and see something. It won't be any September 23, Revelation 12 signs, the Christ said, because the kingdom's inside you. Christ, approached by the Pharisees, said, hey, man, give us some signs. Christ said, look, there's no signs. But the modern eschatologists with their Jesuit doctrine give us a list of signs here that I won't even repeat. And the Christ said these following signs would precede his coming. Jeff, the page is blank. Exactly. Those are the signs that the Christ said would precede his coming. Wait, there's more. Those are the signs that Christ said would precede his coming. And that's an exhaustive list of the signs that Christ predicted would precede his coming. Oh, and by the way, he said this too. Wicked and a perverse generation seeks after signs, and none will be given them. Matthew 16. That's what you call a holy mic drop. You've seen what the gospel truth says about Daniel's 70th week, that it's fulfilled. It's not future. Who do you believe? The Gospel Truth, or L.A. Marzulli, Scott Clarke, and the rest of the boys? It's up to you. Again, I bring you to water, can't make you drink. I bring you to the Gospel Truth, can't make you think. Hubba hubba, who do you trust? Let's take a look at some chat room stuff. See if I can get back to the beginning. Can I get back to the beginning? Wow, we got such great participation. I really appreciate it. It's actually very, very awesome. New camera angle, here we go. Trauma-based mind control, absolutely. Chris Monet likes it when you look directly into the camera. I need new ones. What people, the cause of our problem is being trapped in duality, absolutely. We're not weak, we just need to take back our power and control, absolutely. They are dead, corporation is a dead thing, yep. Hello, everyone. The two witnesses of Building 7. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but that's interesting. It's none of my business, but why are you not drinking anymore? I've always wondered, what is it that you're drinking? Tea. I drink a lot of tea. So whatever's happening now is scripted to seem prophetic. Exactly right, Seeker. It's Jesuit doctrine. And they've done it to set up a final false flag attempt. They've been spoon feeding the people BS and people eating it up without question. Exactly right, Mike. I'm sorry, I'm just reading through these, seeing if there's some good ones. I've saved lives with that gift. Good for you. I want out of this low-grade soap opera. Have no fear. Absolutely. Jeff, you're in their face. Thank you. Your conscious mind can control the unconscious mind. Yes, it can. They create the illusion of duality. That's right. Two blank pages. You got it, Tiffany. Those are all the signs. And I just lost it. Sorry about that. Circumcisions is a great example of how they fragment men. Yes, it is. Whereas in rumors of wars, you actually take them back to the original Greek and it's confusion of war. And there's always that. If you need signs, then you're not awake enough to realize it yourself. Exactly, VH. I'm in the corner by choice. Thank you, Whitney and Billy. Lying Signs and Wonders. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate whoever that was. Blavatsky was a beautiful soul. Yes, she was. And we do a study about her work. Send me an email, Sassy Susie. I'm up for it. I'm sorry, my mind's moving 4,200 miles a minute. My autocorrect is being really incorrect. All right, so that, I think, shows you exactly what is going on with this. That's part of it. So we've gone through and showed you that Matthew 24 shows that all of that prophecy is past, not future. There is no Matthew 24 yet to come to pass in the future. We've shown you that from the Gospel Truth. Now we've shown you that Daniel's 70th week is past, not future. We've shown you that from the gospel truth. So Marzulli, Clarke, and the September 23, Revelation 12 sign people are being proven over and over to be teaching doctrine that doesn't line up with the gospel truth. So you have to choose who you want to believe. As Red Rose Rocker says, Christ said, no sign will be given in the last days. No need for believers to look up or down. She says, but look across the table. I think we should look in the mirror. That's the gospel truth, folks, about Daniel's 70th week in regards to the September 23, Revelation 12 sign. Who are you going to believe? What are you going to believe? It's totally up to you. I bring you to water. I don't force you to drink. I bring you to the gospel truth. But I can't force you to think. But hopefully, I put all the cards on the table, and you will look at the information and make a decision that is consistent with the gospel truth and not the lies of eschatology. Well-meaning or not, they're trying to deceive you. Mark Twain said that it's much easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they've been fooled, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying. Those of you that are new, we hope you'll come back. Those of you that are part of the family, I continue to have a special place in my heart for you and continue to lean on you to help us grow this and make this bigger and better so more and more people can hear the gospel truth. If you're here, you're a person that is seeking truth, and as such, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, and I salute you. I'll be back before too long with more of the gospel truth.